We're going to do a really, really quick UFO segment that I really want to squeeze in here. And it's not a big one. It's literally like a 5-minute thing, okay? I'm bringing it up on screen right now. So there's this former astronaut called Mark Kelly. He's now, I think he's a congressman, right? He's a senator, sorry. He's a senator, and he spoke out about UFOs. Obviously, it's a question you would probably ask any astronaut. Have you ever seen UFOs? Have you had any strange experiences? Now, I spoke about this previously in my private life, in my streams as well. My dad used to be a pilot, okay? Said this a million times. I asked him as well. Obviously, he knows other pilots, so I would meet other pilots. I asked them as well. Have you ever seen anything strange in your 40 years? They're all retired pilots now, commercial pilots. They've spent thousands and thousands of hours in the air in their little aircrafts or like commercial jumbos or 747s. They all said the same thing. They all said, yes, I've seen stuff that was wild, dude. But if you look into it and you do the research, you find out it's actually explainable. All of it is explainable. Every single case, I may need to ask a meteorologist. I may need to ask a geologist. I spoke to people. I did the research. Every single thing that I saw is actually explainable. And it made sense. But when you see it, sometimes you have moments where you're like, oof, that is strange, dude. Lights moving. My father, for example, told me once he took off in Japan, in Tokyo, from the runway, taking off, and you kind of start the plane, you take off towards Mount Fuji, which is obviously a huge mountain. And he said there was this one time where the weather conditions were just perfect, where he took off with the plane and you could see Mount Fuji flipped around. You would see it like a V shape towards the sky, like a giant disc-shaped object in the sky. But I mean, he knew it's just like, it's a, what's the word? A mirage, right? It's like a reflection of the light, basically. So he knew what it was, but he said it was an insane illusion. He could totally see that it's Mount Fuji, but flipped around. And he said you see stuff like that sometimes. You see geological objects flipped around, hovering in the sky, creating these insane illusions, but it's always explainable. Coco Goo says, I gotta pee. Okay, we'll wait for you, Coco. Don't worry, okay? We'll wait for you. I'm just doing the quick alien segment now. It's not even a huge alien segment. It is just about this guy on CNN asking this astronaut whether he's ever seen stuff in space, and he kind of speaks out about what he's experienced. So we're going to look at that. Like a Fata Morgana. Exactly. Hey, Fata Morgana, like a Fata Morgana. I get it. Yeah, it is kind of like Fata Morgana. Now let's look at this video real quick. It's not long. It's like a minute or something on CNN, where this dude asks this guy, this former astronaut Mark Kelly, who is now a senator, and asks him if he's ever seen anything. Mate, you ever seen any aliens up there in space while you were there? Let's see what he has to say.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer introduced legislation to create a review board to declassify government records relating to the sightings of unexplained aerial phenomenon, or UFOs. Do you support that legislation? And as a pilot, have you personally ever seen any unidentified, unexplained aerial phenomenon?
Bro, let me just say, Mr. Clean got old, bro. Holy fuck. He was so young when I was young, but here he is.
Either as a fighter pilot or as an astronaut.
I have not, and none of my colleagues have, as far as I know, and we actually very rarely even speak about this. Can't remember one time in space that we actually talked about aliens or focused on a mission. Hey, if it doesn't have a negative impact on our national security, I think transparency with the American people is the best option. So I haven't seen this, or maybe I have. Let me also say, Jake, that when we have extraordinary claims, we need some extraordinary evidence. That's what Carl Sagan said about this kind of stuff.
Big point.
I think it's important to get the information.
Huge point there, right? This is so important. It's kind of got hidden in this conversation, but like, if you have extraordinary claims, which is it's a UFO, aliens are here, aliens. If you make extraordinary claims like those, and they are extraordinary, you need extraordinary evidence. Okay? And extraordinary evidence is not some guy saying, I spoke to another guy who's in the military saying it's true. That's not extraordinary evidence. Okay? Extraordinary evidence is a tangible, undeniable, physical thing, which doesn't exist. Okay, so he makes that point. It's an original Carl Sagan point, but it's a very, very important one in my opinion.
Said about this kind of stuff, and I think it's important to get the information out there as long as it doesn't impact our national security.
You sound skeptical.
So what?
A little skeptical. I mean, the distances involved from, when you think about the physics of space flight and, how, what it would take to get around just our galaxy. Now, having said that, there's 2 trillion minimum galaxies in the universe, each with hundreds of billions of stars. So when you think about the potential of life in the universe, even within our galaxy, it's tremendous. But I have yet to see any strong evidence of, any life form visiting us from another part of our galaxy.
Yeah, you talk about how the challenge of traveling that distance, but that's just with our little tiny brains, Senator. I mean,
he's kind of making a good point, right? To say, look, these distances in space, but then the host, whatever his name is, also says like, dude, yeah, okay, but that's just us, right? We've evolved our, airplane system for like, 120, 150 years we've been flying around. So where are we going to be in 1,000 years? We don't know that. So it's a fairly good point that he's making there. And to be honest, I support that point. To assume that other life forms are out there in space is an absolute, almost 100% certain assumption, right? Other life forms exist. And to think that just because we haven't figured out how we can fold time and space and travel 50 light years in a second, right, doesn't mean that other people haven't, or other creatures haven't found it out. Like, it's absolutely feasible and possible that other people found it out. But the truth is, there is just no evidence as of right now. Okay, that's what it is. So both of them are having a good point. And I find it very interesting that CNN puts these segments on there. You got to think about it. Why do they put these segments on air? They put it on air because fucking morons love talking about aliens. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's what it is. And I count myself into that as well. People love fucking aliens and UFO stories, so they put it out there because they know it's going to get them the clicks. And I can't see the click numbers on this video versus the other videos, but I'm sure it's fairly high. Compared to the other videos. So here, and also like keep in mind, this is a former astronaut and he says, I haven't seen anything. None of my colleagues have seen anything. And to be honest, we rarely talk about that. Okay, so that should tell you everything you need to know.
Who knows what's
Well, that's
out
right.
there.
And we've, exactly. And we've gone we've come a long way in the last 120 years, right? We went from first flight of an airplane to Neil Armstrong stepping foot on the moon in about 70 years. Think about what we're going to be able to do in 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 years.
It's a fair point.
I get that. I think it's important to get that information out there. Again, if it doesn't have a negative impact on our country's national security.
All right, Senator. Good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Clean gives his statement on aliens. Okay, great stuff right there. That's basically it. I just wanted to run this by you because I thought it's kind of interesting that like a former astronaut, same as my dad, who's a former pilot, right? And whenever you speak to these astronauts, I mean, I didn't, but you see these videos, and you speak to former pilots like my dad, they all say the same thing. They all say, dude, I've never seen anything that was truly unexplainable. It's not a thing, okay? It's not real. It's not a real thing. So I just felt like that kind of underlined my narrative as well, that, I'm supporting and I'm believing that aliens are not here, aliens are not real. And if, they're real in the sense that they might be somewhere out there in these 380 billion of other galaxies, I'm sure there's some life out there, but are they here on Earth? Probably not. Okay, they're probably not here.